Captain Omar is a very ready hand, so he's here with us as well. He's been following all of the developments as it was turning out. Captain Omar, good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the program. So you've definitely been following this for a while now. And when you, the stories and narratives before the meeting and then the outcome of the meeting, what kind of picture did you get from all of this?
First of all, good morning. And what we saw happen in Oyo State and other parts of the country is not surprising. They were just waiting to happen. If you recall, in this studio, sometime 2014, when the Agatus of Benue State took the heat from the same threat types, I said something specifically that MACBAN was struggling to own a problem that was not theirs. We also saw at that point the ethnicization of criminal elements. Ethnicization of criminal elements in the sense that crime is crime. It has no religion, it has no region, it has no party. It's a crime regardless. Anyone can commit a crime. We decided to, first of all, brand that crime, and having branded it, MACBAN fell for that silly bait and owned the crime. Now they've gotten themselves boxed in, regretfully. Let me explain what I mean by branding. If you recall when COVID-19 started, it started somewhere in Wuhan, in China. The first thing the World Health Organization and the UN did was to unbrand the virus. Because if they didn't do that, in fact, the Chinese started taking the heat, actually. They were being segregated, they were being discriminated against. And at a point, efforts were made to ensure that, look, it's not about Wuhan and China, it's about a virus. We went that sorry way of, rather than looking at the crime, we were looking at the people or the region or the religion, and the umbrella body, MACBAN, did not help matters because they kept seeming to try to own the problem. Now we're here. We've had a meeting. We've had is it a communique now or a press release? Profiling the trends in Nigeria, I say well done. Meeting, press release. Beyond that ceremony, it is still up to the umbrella body now to toe the line and lead the initiative. It's not about going to sit down with all the dainty fellows saying very wonderful things. Then that miscreant, that rascal in the forest will still do something tomorrow that will set the whole process back. Those people that are killing and raping and maiming, they have no reckoning or respect for constituted authority or law enforcement, and we will deal with them decisively. Lastly, we must understand that Nigeria is for all of us, but it comes with a responsibility. You cannot go where you wish to reside and decide not to respect the norms and values of the people you met there. You can't do that. Across this country, we've had issues because that's what people tend to want to do. It's not done anywhere. Much as we are allowed by law to live where we want and reside where we want, you must understand that you didn't carry that place on your head and take it there. You met people there. And the people have a way of life, they have norms, they have values. If it's not okay with you, their values, leave them in peace. Don't go there and try to impose your outlandish ways on people. It's not done. You do that, you become a troublemaker.
All right. We equally have Ms. Habila. Let's get to Abuja for that now. MACBAN?
Well, yes, indeed. I'm sure you have seen, excuse me, the event which led up to the meeting we saw of Southwest governors and members of MACBAN. And you've also heard the position of Captain Umar Aliyu there. Do you agree with him that this was MACBAN struggling to own a crime that wasn't theirs in the first instance?
No, thank you for having me. I've heard the contribution just made, but I would say the pronouncement of the governor of Ondo State. Remember that he is the chief security officer of the state, and remember also that one of the purpose of governance is security and welfare. And I think he got it right when he said, based on information available at his disposal through interacting with victims of crime within that general area in the forest, and also from the security agencies that he has had several meetings and briefing, indicates that there are a particular group of personality, the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeding Association of Nigeria, and that's the MACBAN, and that's the headers, largely responsible for, compromising and participating in that crime. And so I think if there are crimes and you are able to profile up to those community or those individuals that are responsible, sometimes it is also good to point that out. And so I think with every seriousness, he wanted to draw attention and wanted to let people know that that is happening in that forest.
But looking at, the directive that he came up with, the ultimatum he handed down, the misreading, it will seem, or miscommunication or misunderstanding, however it is, wherever it is you stand on that, and then eventually the meeting which we saw yesterday, was it an end which you expected, or did you think that, it was going to end differently, so to speak?
No, I watched him talk, and I watched them trying to bring out what transcended or transpired in that place. And I could see that he has said it clearly, that is the governor of Ondo State, that he did not intend to sack. He did not intend to take out MACBAN, but that he's given an opportunity that he wants to know who is at where, and he also wants to know what is happening in the vicinity, particularly in the forest reserve. And so he made it clear that his intention is not to let them go or to sack them, but his intention is to put down some protocols that would admit them and allow them to go ahead with their threat of breeding of animals or breeding of cows within that area. He said those who would want to stay, there's a template and it requires registration and all sort of that, so that he can use that maybe to trace those who must have gotten out of the law that guides who is to remain in that forest. And also that will also help him to know who is behind this, because of course it cannot be the cattle breeders or the headers, all of them in that place that are responsible for this act.
Any surprises, though? We've seen what has happened so far in terms of security deteriorating, not just in the Southwest, but, basically all over the country. Kidnapping is at an all-time high. Banditry is also, running away, by itself. Any surprises in terms of what we're seeing, the profiling of crime, so to speak, and criminals, instead of focusing on the crime itself?
Before you focus on any crime, anywhere, first of all, you need to geolocate. You must identify at what point do we have this crime. You need to know about that, and you need to study the environment, the community. What is responsible for this kind of crime? And you need to know the people behind it, so that you can proffer a solution. But if you generalize and don't do some of the things, you're not going to get it right. And so all over, there are a lot of crime and criminality that are geolocated in a lot of the states. If you talk about Kaduna, there we've had a lot of long time of participation in trying to curb that crime. If you talk about Benue, I was there. I also have had the opportunity also to join others to plan and execute some of the things that will bring peace into that place. Or are you talking about Nasarawa? Most of the states have flashpoints where this kind of criminality is happening. And so I think that we need to make sure that, yeah, it's not good to figure out one particular tribe and you keep saying, is this? If there is, you need to also go down again to know what kind of this association, if it is MACBAN, what kind of MACBAN people, that were, members that are responsible for this. And in doing that, it's through this kind of interaction that the governors in the Southwest are trying to do, trying to bring in people and dialogue, and then get to know what the problems are, and also send intelligence, like the governor have said, and these people that it is very, very clear that the location in Ondo where this thing is happening has been identified, and some of the people that reside there also identified, and some of the intelligence and information that has been shared as a result of people that have been kidnapped. Don't forget that there's a lot of kidnapping activities around there. He also was able to know who are the people responsible, and that was why he said anybody who wants to carry out activities there, particularly the headers, must come and get to that the arm that is responsible for the security and the activities in that reserve forest, must capture their data and who they are, and that will be the only condition that they will now go in there. Otherwise, he wants them out of there. I think it's not too harsh, but I also think that as the chief security officer of the state and the person that must ensure safety and security of the individuals, he could go to say that. And he has said it, that his intention is not to take away headers in Ondo.
Before we throw this back to Lagos, you mentioned the fact that you have been involved in operations in the north, in north central, and also even in the south.
Yes.
Can you draw a thread, a connecting thread between these criminals? I mean, are they of the same? Is there a larger agenda, as a lot of people think that there could be? Or do you think that this is pure, plain criminality with no underlying agenda? Let's not forget that, you know, some governors in the north, I remember Governor Nasir El-Rufai talked about how at one point governors in the northwest had to bandy together to flush out criminals from the forests. Kidnappers and a number of people had taken over a forest which bordered at least 7 states. And these governors had to come together to look for how to flush out these criminals through a military operation, so to speak. Is there a thread, is there a connecting thread between those criminals who were flushed out then at that time, because we understand that some parts of the forest, again, it looks like they're back there, and those which seem to be occupying the forest in the southwest and perhaps parts of the north central?
Yeah, if there's an opinion on this, you are right. It is right also to say that those of them that were taken out in the forest in the north, if there are pressure like what happened in the north, where governors came together and put some resources together and got the security agencies and the military to go out and sweep the forest. Mm-hmm. They call that Operation Sharandaje. That is sweeping the forest. Of course, when the heat is on these criminals in the forest, the only alternative left for them, of course, is to geolocate, is to relocate. And that's why it is possible, and it is that could be proved with a lot of trying to find out that it is true that some of them, they were in the north. They were responsible for some of the carnage in the northern part of this country. Could be the people that have run down to where it is happening now, in the southwest and what have you. And so it is possible there is a connection between the fact that it is possible that most of the criminals in the north that were rooted out have found their ways, to the south. Like yesterday, a few days ago, you saw the governor of Nasarawa letting you know that the Boko Haram in the northeast found their way in Nasarawa and the border of Nasarawa and Benue. And some of them that were gotten also made that confession. So you could see that there is a link. There is no geographical area that you would say that these criminals hibernate and would not move. They move.
Do you think that there is an underlying agenda? That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so because I think I don't think there's any because I don't think that reasonable people will wake up one day and come together to want to go and destroy a particular geographical citizen. Say you leave the north to come to the south to create problems because you want to destroy the fabrics, you want to destroy the peace, you want to let everybody know that
they want to take over the land. More specifically, there are those who believe that this is about taking over lands.
Yeah, of course, it will be very, very unfortunate to also say that the cattle breeders from the north will get to that place to try to own the land. I don't think so. I think it's purely criminality. It's purely criminality. And also, I know that when they settle, they would want to belong to the community where they find themselves. And they could drag some part of the land, like what we have on the plateau, where we're saying that, of course, they must rear their cows, and they must also look for space for these cows, because in the past, in the north, we had cattle routes, and these cattle routes were not cultivated, for whatever reason. But because of the agricultural activities that has opened up, people went to cultivate on those routes. And so when the herders come, they would want to insist that they want to pass through where they used to pass through. And then they will eat up the crops and they will destroy the crops. And of course, farmers won't let that go. That we saw in Benue, that we also saw in Plateau, Niger, and Nasarawa.
Well, let's quickly flip this back to Lagos now. Chamberlain.
Well, we've got Ms. Agbenga Obawaya, who is the chairman of Ondo State Agricultural Commodities Association, joining us via Zoom. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, you've been in the thick of things as all of this are playing out, but haven't seen how the meeting went yesterday in consideration of what has been happening before that meeting. What are your thoughts? You think this, finally, you're getting some solutions, as it were?
Well, we received the news, the outcome of the program, with some level of gratitude, because at least we have moved a few inches forward, because I can only say it's a few inches forward. What we are concerned about primarily is that we should be allowed to do our business in peace. We should be able to go to our farms, not afraid that we are going to be raped, we are going to be kidnapped, or we are going to be maimed. We should be able to sleep, having put our farm schedules in place, that by so and so time, we are supposed to be doing this farm operation, and for it to work as it has been scheduled. But presently, for most farmers, for most agropreneurs in Ondo State, that is not the situation. And there was a little ray of hope when Mr. Governor, the governor of Ondo State, made a pronouncement that all cattle, all herders should leave the government reserve. In fact, what many farmers and many people interpreted that to be immediately was that they have been given a quick notice, because the truth is that we are under siege. For whatever reason, the onslaught is this much, we would not know. But we are concerned about this thing coming to an end. We have said it time and again. We have held so many meetings.
Okay, why do you say that this are just a few inches? Because the dailies are reflecting it's a huge milestone.
Well, maybe from their own point of view, because even when the meeting was going on yesterday, I received so many phone calls. People were apprehensive that the order was going to be rescinded, because people are just clinging on to that where it's at least somewhere to start, because the forest reserves have been seen as no man's land, so to say, by many illegal occupants. And if people are flushed out of the place, it is an average farmer, an average family will not allow somebody that will do him harm to come and settle on his private land and property. So in other words, it's an indirect way of saying, look for your own land that you own and establish a ranch, establish a farm where you can do what other people are doing. We have places designated as places that pigs are to be raised in Ondo State. Because I am a personal example of that. I had a pig farm somewhere that was removed from the city. But in a few years' time, urbanization caught up with the place. So I had to shut down that arm of my business because it was an inconvenience to other people. And I had to do something in the interim until I could put that same business in place in a properly designated place where it will not be of any harm to some other person. So we are saying what will solve this problem is that anybody who wants to raise cattle, whether he's an indigene or a non-indigene, he must get a place that is designated as his farm, where he's going to restrict his animals and where he's going to find food for them, because that is the bone of contention.
Okay, Mr. Bawai, when we come back, because we're going to break now, that which you say is a bone of contention, alongside some of the resolutions here, will be considered in just a moment. Do stay with us. All right, welcome back. We'll get to Usman and Gosama in just a moment, but let me bring Kaide in.
Oh, yes. Mr. Bawai, so you raised some issues. And first, I'd like to ask you, right after this meeting, you saw the communique, you listened to those present. You said before this you didn't feel safe going to your farms. Do you feel safe now?
Oh, because nothing really has changed as far as we are concerned. What has given every one of us a ray of hope is that what will happen moving forward when the government begins to enforce its order that these people that are inhabiting the forests should quit, then we can see maybe the effect of this quit order, this movement. Over time, we have arrived at these same conclusions. We have held series of meetings that there should be no underage herders, that there should be no night grazing, that they shouldn't come to the highways and so on. We have done this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and we still have the same scenario, and it seems as if it's even getting worse. So it is what we do moving forward, and what we are saying is that these things should be properly enforced. We have been on the neck of government for about 3-4 years now, also asking that there should be legislation regulating grazing of animals, that in fact there should be a total prohibition of open grazing. Pigs are not allowed to graze. It used to be in the culture of Akure people, Ondo State people, to raise local pigs, and they were roaming. But with civilization, with urban renewal, these things have been outlawed. And the people have complied, even though it was ingrained in their custom and in their culture. So why should we have a set of people who keep on saying that it is our culture, that's the way it has been, and so That's the way it must continue.
Okay, Mr.
Why
Bawaya.
should you roam with your animals and destroy other people's investments? So it's the problem that I'm saying that we are not feeling safer yet until we see the effect, the enforcement of this eviction order, and things begin to get better.
Okay, now speaking of that eviction order, Mr. Bawaya, so yesterday we listened to the governor of Ondo State, even the governor of Ekiti State, the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, sort of clarifying the earlier statement which was put out by the Ondo State governor. And now they say that the order was to those illegally occupying the forest reserves and not a general order to all herdsmen in the forest reserves to quit. So are you saying that you're not happy with this clarification, that you'll prefer to have all herders actually leave the forest reserves? Is that what you're saying?
The truth is that I'm not aware yet that there is any single herder that has submitted himself for the registration process, as far as I know, because I think we have been reviewing the situation, and even after the meeting, we reviewed the situation. And the government is in custody of the names, the identities of all the farmers, all those who government has graciously permitted to operate, to ply their trade within the forest reserves. And to date, I don't think herders are part of that list yet. So as far as the law, as far as the order is concerned, it's as if there is no herder that is occupying the forest reserve legally yet. So what we are saying is that let them comply first. Just like the farmers that were in the forest reserve complied with the directive of the Ondo State government, they submitted themselves for identification, for registration. But as far as the farmer is concerned, what we would even prefer is that they should leave the forest reserve and come to places where other human beings are, so that the things they are doing are not done in secret. We have a few people who have ranches. We can see their ranches. They are our neighbors. They raise their cows in plain sight. So why should some people want to do their business under the cover of secrecy? That's why we are not happy that any position should be shifted. And we are not saying the government has shifted position, because we got it clear from the beginning that the governor said they should leave the forest reserve. And then if they are going to be allowed, they have to apply, they have to register, they have to be known before they can be allowed back in. And I just want to appeal to government that this process should be allowed to run like that. Nobody should be allowed to stay and negotiate from inside the forest reserve.
Yeah, from what some of the dailies are saying this morning, would sound like Yetiala is already, they have already agreed to that registration. But just as you said, maybe when we see the compliance from today, we'll be able to say that. But let me bring this back to Captain Aliyu Umar in the studio with us. Earlier, when you began this conversation, you said that MACBAN was desperately trying to own a crime it wasn't involved in. Just what do you mean, and how do you think they were trying to do that at the time?
You see, crime is to mankind as mankind is to crime. Depending on which society or which country, different acts are considered criminal. There is a level of apprehension amongst we Nigerians when things happen, and that is what mires the course of justice. When we take attention off the act and start looking at the person. So you saw in 2014, I'm seriously dwelling on the Agatu, the Dogona Hawa, those two incidents by these same people, where we left the act and started hollering and haggling about the persona, the people. MACBAN, that happens to be the umbrella body, unfortunately fell for that bait and decided to become protagonists of the Fulani people and thought they were defending that ethnic nationality. Unfortunately, MACBAN now became the face of what you can call the defenders of those gory acts. Today, as I speak to you, the Fulani ethnic nationality has become the face of anything those rascals in the bushes do. Let me tell you something, Makinde. My father is still alive and I am his son. By the laws and rules that guard our families, there is something I can do today and even my father will disown me. So what I'm simply saying here is if MACBAN really wants to be seen, to be serious about not identifying with what is happening and not blacklisting the ethnic nationality to which they belong, they must take a firm position and stamp their foot about these renegade and rogue herdsmen who are hell-bent on blacklisting the Fulani nationality.
Well, the angle that you talked about them, owning this thing, is getting a little clearer now. But because, I mean, even they, the MACBAN members and all the official or legal cattle herders have always found one way or another to condemn the criminality or criminal acts of some of the people that have been blacklisted accordingly. But what kind of action, and we hope to speak with them this morning, we're making effort to do that, but what kind of action would you expect from them specifically, seeing that they have members all over the nation, and every time people talk about these things, they talk about Fulani herdsmen, not members of MACBAN. So perhaps it is their trade that they are trying to protect, and not just, because anything that has to do with herdsmen, it would seem like it's their business, and consequently anything that tries to touch their business, they will want to protect. Perhaps that's the perspective that some of them are looking at. What's your take on that?
You're right. But let me tell you something. We have a way of thinking the ceremony solves the problem. We have a way of thinking the pronouncement will do the job in the bushes. MACBAN has met with stakeholders at their level. I can assure you those perpetrating the act are inane and oblivious of what is happening. You may be surprised that right after this meeting, these people will still do damage. Now, what I'm trying to say here is simple. What are the exact things we need to do? Remember, MACBAN is Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of where? Nigeria. So you don't just stroll in with your cattle from God knows where, and because you are within our nation space, you believe you are now a member of Mieti Allah. No, MACBAN will have to streamline that. And one thing I will encourage MACBAN to do is to begin to look at options. Way back 2015, I was in Kaduna State. I attended a program on radio, and I asked a very simple question, which we need to go back to. There are more polo horses in northern Nigeria than there are anywhere else, and horses eat even much more than cattle. Do we graze our polo horses in Zaria, in Kano, in Kaduna? No. So how are they fed? Through the seasons. Do we unleash them on people's farms? No. How are they fed? Today, rural, or rather let me say urbanization and evolution has brought us to a situation where we cannot continue to do things the good old way. So it is up to us to evolve with time and try to see how we can exploit ways. I look forward to seeing that day when Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria will head their cattle with drones. And 50, 70 years from now, our children will be saying it's our culture to head cattle with drones.
I mean, it's quite interesting setting that sort of target. I mean, that might be medium to long term, but there's this present challenge which you have spoken to. You listen to Mr. Bawaya saying they don't feel safe, even though that meeting ended and we had resolutions. And also there's this other side about the fact that there's MACBAN, but you also have Mieti Allah Cattle Hore, who was not a part of that meeting yesterday, but that's another side. But first, to deal with the issue which Mr. Bawaya raised, is the fact that they don't feel safe yet. So clearly it would seem that this meeting did not achieve much, at least from their perspective. So how can we make them feel safe?
Beautiful. There are three perspectives to the meeting. The perspectives of those who held the meeting in their exalted positions, the perspective of the locals, the citizens of the state, and also the perspectives of whom? The miscreants. The miscreants are oblivious and inane to constituted authority. The people feel very insecure, as it were. And the government has done what I've said earlier, made pronouncement, held ceremonies. How do we make them feel safe? There is one low-hanging fruit solution. And before I make that solution known, let me say that there is virtually no state in Nigeria that hasn't taken the hit on this peculiar threat we're talking about. They are all over. The best way we can do it is not to run to the federal government all the time and say, look, do something. We have to micromanage the threat. Micromanaging the threat has to be every single governor's baby. We must let the governors micromanage this threat in their states. And if truly we want to coexist with each other, then where we find ourselves across cultural and religious, how do I put it, divides, then we must learn to respect the values, the norms, and the sensitivities of the socio-cultural environment within which we find ourselves. We must not begin to carry ourselves and try to go and impose ours on others. We are guilty of doing this across all regions of Nigeria. I've been in this country long enough to see even across religious divides, certain people cross to where their religion is alien to others, and then clashes occur. We must learn to respect and accommodate each other. So basically what we are looking at is a situation where if the federal government wants to see some real fast, low-hanging fruit results, they must allow the chief executives to manage the situations in their state, and they can do that effectively.
All right, let me ask Mr. Bawaya now, from some of the things that you have heard and the kind of interventions that the governors have put out, maybe I should ask you this first, given that you said, I mean, you don't feel safe and all of that. Can you tell us what the response time before now is anytime you raise security concerns with government or with security agencies, maybe the police and all? What's the response time? How quickly do you get response? And for you, what would be a good response time that will make you feel safe?
This way. Are you talking about particular individual incidences, or you're talking about this way? A plea to government to intervene?
What's the average response time from you and your members?
Well, for here and there, for those who have access and those who will bother to even do that again, because the truth is that we have filed so many reports. Some security agents were asking late last year that we should bring photographs. As we said, we are tired of doing those things. So we just...
Oh dear. Sort that out. All right, let's get Usman Baban Gelzama. He's the National Secretary of MACBAN. Let's hope this works this time. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
All right, so what is your impression of how that meeting went with respect to getting a solution to all that is happening? Go ahead, please.
To me, the meeting went very well, and we have succeeded in almost what we are here for. And by the grace of God, this development we hope will bring back peace to the southwest region of Nigeria. You
say the meeting went very well. Part of the directive was that all of those who were, illegally in the forest reserves needed to move. Then no night grazing. If anyone needed to graze, you need to come forward and register. Now, you're with MACBAN. Are you equally taking responsibility for all the members, all those who graze, at least in Ondo State?
Well, you see, Chamberlain, Allah Cattle Breeder Association is an association. And just like we are associated, there are a host of other associations also in the country. We have our own members. All those who have agreed to register with us are our members. And whenever we speak on behalf of our members. We don't speak for the whole pastoralists in the country. But because we have a large spread, we have our presence in almost all the 36 states of the federation and in most of the local governments. That is why whatever happens, whether good or bad, it is associated to us. But we only speak on behalf of our members. There are a host of other pastoralist associations in the country. A lot of them. They are there. The Kautal Hore, the Allah Kautal Hore are there. The Gam Allah are there. Jam 94, a lot of them are there, and they all have their members, and they are all registered. So whenever we speak on behalf of our members.
This fracas that went on, was there any of your members that were either grazing in the forest reserve, involved in all of those allegations that were leveled against those who were grazing?
Well, since we did not sort that out, we cannot say that we don't have members there. Until when we begin to sort out, that's when we will know whether we have our members there or not. But let me put one record very straight for people to understand. There is a difference between a forest reserve and a grazing reserve. Grazing reserves are those areas that are designated for grazing. Forest reserves are those areas that are designated for future development. If we say forest reserve, normally under the law, farmers are not supposed to farm in forest reserves. Herders are not supposed to graze in forest reserves. No fuel exploitation in the forest reserve. No hunting in the forest reserve, no bush burning in the forest reserve. Forest reserve is an area that is reserved for future development, depending on what interest will be addressed by the forest. If it is the interest of the farmers, the government decided farmers need more land, the government can decide to give part of their forest reserve to farmers to farm. If the government thinks the forest, the pastoralists need an area for grazing, the government is at liberty to take part of the forest reserve and give to pastoralists to graze. So forest reserve are those reserved areas that nothing is allowed to take place in.
Part of, I'm not sure what part of that you heard, part of the allegation was that some of those who kidnap people use those areas as a hideout. And that was why they were suggesting, you know what, everybody, no one should be there, such that if anyone is found there, then they've got questions to answer. Did you understand that part?
See, Chamberlain, I didn't see why this thing has become a problem. Go to the northern part of Nigeria today, where the pastoralists belong. Go to those areas that were designated as grazing reserves. Some pastoralists don't dare to go there because of fear of kidnappers, because of fear of cattle rustlers in those forests. Take from Damaturu to Kano today. If you are driving, you will see most of the pastoralists living by the roadside, with their hamlets by the roadside. They are all living there to towns, villages, and cities because they also fear to go deep into the forest because of fear of their cattle will be rustled by rustlers, or they will be kidnapped by kidnappers, or bandits will come and take over everything they have and kill them. So because of this fear, even those areas that are designated for grazing, the pastoralists today don't no longer go to those areas because of fear of what will happen to them. Go to the Bisa forest. The Bisa forest is a reserve. It's very large. Today, you can hardly find a person take away his cows and kill him. So I didn't see how this thing is becoming a problem. Ondo has a lot of other areas that can be used for this grazing. And Ondo State has been living with pastoralists for decades. Some were born and brought up here. Some, even their parents, were born and brought up here. They don't know anywhere apart from Ondo State.
Yeah, if you don't mind me butting in for a bit, clearly this resolution yesterday wasn't only about Ondo State from the fact that Southwest governors all came there. But part of the resolutions of that meeting, you may want to look at it in this slide that we're about to put on air, between the northern governors and MACBAN, the resolution included the fact that MACBAN should embrace and be committed to modern breeding process by creating grazing reserves and practice ranching to prevent cattle roaming about. How do you intend to take that on as members of MACBAN or pastoralists generally? What's the plan?
You see, Cameron, we are never against ranching. We are never against ranching in any way. Because the pastoralists, the type of pastoralists we have in this country are those that still practice the outdated system of animal husbandry they inherited from their forefathers. Because they have no attempt to modernize the system of animal husbandry. Still, they don't know that today there exists in the world exotic cows who are weighing about 600 to 700 kilograms against the one that they have to weigh a maximum of maybe 800 to 100 kilograms. They don't know today there is one cow that can give an output of milk of 50 liters against the one that they have that gives a maximum output of maybe 3-5 liters of milk per cow. They don't know. They are not educated. Nobody try to educate them. And all this noise that is going on about ranching, about rigor, about colony, about national livestock development plan, up till now, we don't have a model on ground that the pastoralists will see and say, we don't know, we are left far behind, so we have to come up. They don't know. They are doing what they know because they don't know these new innovations of livestock and what have you. So
well, you know what they say, that ignorance is no excuse, Mr. Ngozama. And you know that the NLTP, which, I mean, is sort of a brainchild of NEC, championed by the Vice President, has been ongoing in some pilot states. So clearly something is being done to ensure that there's, proper model for ranching. But I'd like you to respond to this also, because it's quite important to know if some of these resolutions will be followed through. For example, they talk about night grazing underage herders. I recall last year, around this time, that same order was given by MACBAN to end all night grazing across the country, ensure that there are no underage herders. And yet again, we're having a repeat of that. So what happened? Why wasn't that implemented? And how are we sure that it will be implemented this time around?
You know, sometimes when we come up with a decision that are implementable, sometimes government don't give much attention for the sustenance of such things. We at the national level can come, call our members, sensitize them, and request the state branch to continue to sensitize them against these things. We were part of the team who came last 2 years and sat with the Ondo State Governor and decided on these things, that there should not be night grazing and there shouldn't be underage grazing and so many other things. So you see, even yesterday after our meeting, we sat with all those that we invited from across the region and emphasized on those things. And emphasize on those things that there shouldn't be night grazing. Whoever intends to go on night grazing must have an interior motive to go and destroy somebody's farm. And from now on, if we catch anybody going on night grazing, we will report him to the security so that the security will punish and penalize him. So these are the things that we always emphasize and talk about. Well, so let's always the truth be told. Because we are
Usman Baban Galzama, and just coincides with when we just need to wrap the segment up, but Usman Galzama is National Secretary, Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, Benga Bawaya Chairman, Ondo State Agricultural Commodities Association, and Captain Ali Omar, Security Consultant and CEO, Goldwater and Riverside Consults. We've also had Mr. Joshua Kabila, who is a former DIG Operations of Nigeria Police. Gentlemen, thank you all for your time this morning. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.